Hi.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, we're live now.
We are live.
It's been fun setting all of this up.
It's Thursday. You guys know what time it is. It is time for the Firing Pin live stream.
You know, where we do fun stuff like talk to our guests, talk about firearms, just industry news, all the fun stuff. We missed you last week.
Yeah, I was a little bit caught up catching up with the family. You know, I had been traveling from New Hampshire and stuff like that for the tactical games.
I want to silence this
So,
fan a little bit.
Yeah, the fan is a little bit distracting maybe in the audio. Get that taken care of. Also, let's take care of some business real quick. So,
speaking of fans, you know who I'm a fan of?
Who's that?
Well, both of our sponsors, really. I don't know how to work this fan. So.
Okay. Well, Arms Preservation Inc., we're a fan of theirs. Let's talk about API and their line of vapor corrosion inhibitor products. They're lovely storage bags for your ammunition, firearms, all your valuables, right?
Yeah.
They also have their new spray.
Metal defense, it's up.
Metal defense, we have it right here in the little yellow bottle with the green spray top.
A lot of you have heard us talk about how it's used in the past. You know, you quickly just spray it on, wait a few minutes, and it dissipates. I use it on my cannon, and my cannon usually stays pretty oiled, and I take care of it. But it didn't leave any nasty residues or anything on it, so I'm pretty satisfied so far.
Awesome.
But I want to do some like hard testing on really rusty prone, rustable prone.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
that sounds correct.
It's something like that. I really want to test it. I want to spray it on something that is like going to rust.
We'll come up with something good, and maybe we'll get some input from our buddies over there at API.
It was I know we have another sponsor, but last week was fun. I'm sad you missed it. With our friends at Thin Line Defense, the little second stream we did after the first stream.
Yeah. That was way past my bedtime.
Yeah, I know. I know you wouldn't even really been able to have stayed. They're just really cool. They're from all over the country. And I don't know. If you missed it on YouTube, you should definitely go check out their channel. We'll drop it in chat. I know Joe is busy right now, so I'll work on dropping that in chat. But
very cool.
It was a very fun stream.
Nice.
And Beyond Driven.
Yeah.
They're
love
Beyond
those guys.
Driven,
so Beyond Driven Fitness and Performance in Leroy, over there on Main Street in Leroy. You guys know the deal, right? 24/7 gym access. They have many different classes on tap for you guys, and they have some of the most state-of-the-art facilities that I've had the privilege of using. So definitely check those guys out. Support them. Great local small business, and thank them for sponsoring the program.
Yeah.
So what do we have for these guys tonight, Ty? We got a lot of viewers.
Yeah, we
saying hi. Hello, everybody.
Several hundred. So thank you. I wanted to. Well, first we have a question that I think we should hit before. Sorry.
Yeah,
I guess I'll split brain.
Let's do it.
Sorry if you don't want to be doxxed, but you're on Facebook and your name shows. So Matthew asks, tell us about the tactical games.
Okay.
So let's get into that first.
All right. Yeah, we can talk about that. So the tactical games, as some of you guys might know, I went to the Ridgeline Training Center in New Hampshire. It's up there in Dalton, New Hampshire. Another great facility. If you guys get an opportunity to check out their Instagram page, they got a lot of cool content that they do there. And you can also find out more about some of their open enrollment classes that they do and different long-range shooting opportunities that really seems to be like their bread and butter of what they do.
The location they did it at looked gorgeous.
Yes.
The mountains or hills and
up there in the mountains in New Hampshire. And we definitely got to experience all of the changing weather that you get in the mountains.
Yeah.
A lot of rainstorms coming in and out throughout the weekend. So got a chance to be cold and wet and then get dry and then do it all over again. So that was interesting. A lot of really challenging events. And honestly, I felt underprepared.
Yeah.
I should have spent some more time lifting heavy weights. I had gotten away from that a little bit and definitely paid a huge penalty for it because, there were some events there that definitely stressed what I would call like strength endurance, right? Being able to lift, say, like 60 or 70% effort repeatedly.
Yeah.
And you just get gassed out. So my shooting was pretty on point. I was pretty happy with that. But a couple of the events, honestly, just the work, I didn't get finished. So I didn't even get an opportunity to expend all of my ammunition. So there was a lot of penalties, associated with that as well. So I did not do well. I think I was 20th in my division of 30 guys. And
30 hard people though, like
oh
went out and
dude,
did that. Like,
there were some serious
placing is
competitors
nice.
out there. There were some guys that I had competed against before, and I definitely was around like people that I was familiar with and friendly with. There were 3 or 4 people that had come out and competed in skirmish events here or training days here. So definitely some familiar faces from our own backyard. Which was really nice to see, and get to reconnect with some of those folks. And if you guys get an opportunity to compete in any of the tactical games events, I highly recommend it because it's a really fun. It's a unique challenge.
It's fun to watch you.
And yeah, it's fun to get out there and compete. And I always say it, but I mean it. The community is like second to none. So
yeah, it seemed like I love the picture you had with all of
the guys from my squad. Yeah.
It just seemed really cool.
Yeah, our heat, when you're going against the guys, so I was in heat number 8. So 5 guys were in that specific group, and we're all competing in the tactical division. Ostensibly we're against each other competing. But in reality, you want to see those other guys do well because it pushes you to do well also, right? So
plus you're all doing the same thing, you know what I mean?
We're all involved in the same pursuit, and 2 of the guys that were in my heat were guys that had competed with me before in New Hampshire 2 years ago. So again, familiar faces there, and they actually brought another friend with them who was also part of our heat. So it was like 4 guys that were all kind of like familiar with each other, and then we had another guy that we kind of just brought into like the group as well. And it was it's just cool to be part of that experience.
What were you rocking? Brett asks, what pistol were you running? And
or rifle? So my long gun, I was using a 13.7 Roscoe barrel, Sons of Liberty Gunworks bolt carrier group. It was just a gun that I kind of built myself, and worked really well. I had a dot on it. For those of you who are wondering about optics, we were shooting targets out to like 300 plus yards. So
it's quite a distance.
It's easy when you know your holds and stuff like that. And you have like a gun that you have trained at distance with.
Yeah.
So that was helpful because I've used that gun at those distances a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so I was pretty familiar with like the holds, and I was able to get some good first round impacts on longer distance targets, which was nice because there was like a 20-second penalty for every miss on like the longer distance targets, right? So
it's a big penalty.
It's a big penalty to miss. Like it's kind of counterintuitive the way that they have it set because the longer targets are a higher penalty to miss.
Yeah.
So you want to take a lot more time on those longer distance shots, and then the closer shots were like a 10-second penalty for a miss.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because they want you to slow it down and take your time and get those longer distance shots dialed. But some guys were like shooting LPVOs and dots with magnifiers and different stuff, and everybody's kind of coming to the line looking at everybody else's gear, like what's this guy shooting, what's he shooting. Somebody looks at my gun and they're like, oh, you got a dot, you might have some trouble out there. I was like no.
Michael says he saw your pics as well and you looked cool AF.
Hey, thanks, man. That's like rule number 1.
You gotta look cool,
is what they say, right? Rule number 1 is you gotta look cool.
That matters a lot, actually.
Do it for the gram, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. No, it was a lot of fun, and I always look forward to going out and competing. So I said it was my last one. I doubt it will be.
Yeah, I doubt it. Knowing you,
I doubt it will be. I'm probably gonna have to get out there and do it again. It's too much fun.
It's a competition like built for you. I mean, it's perfect for you. That's kind of what this stream's going to be about, like your time in the service and all of that stuff. And would you say that kind of is what led you into wanting, like there's a part of you that misses that, so now you do things like the tactical games? And
I just want to do things that are like difficult, I guess, like on some level, like, you know, you need to challenge yourself in some capacity, right? I think so. That's kind of it fulfills my need to compete with other people and to compete with myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yes, I would say that like that's also part of the same thing that like led me to want to be in the service in the first. So I think it all comes from the same place. I don't necessarily think that like my service would have made me more inclined to do that, because I've always liked to shoot anyway. And I've always liked to compete. I like to win, man. I like to, you know, I like to get out and try.
Of course.
So,
speaking of the service, let's get started on that. What years and what company?
okay, so I was I was on active duty from 2006. I enlisted in February 2006 until June of 2012 was when I ETS'd. So I was with the same, pretty much the same company the entire time. I was in 1st Engineer Battalion, which is now it's part of 1st Heavy Brigade Combat Team in the 1st Infantry Division. So back then it was just 1st Brigade Combat Team. They weren't like heavy or whatever the designation is now. But so yeah, I was in 1st ID, 1st Brigade Combat Team, and I got a chance to deploy with those guys in 2006 for the first time. From September.
How old were you?
I was 23.
Okay.
I was 23. So, yeah, I got a chance to deploy with those guys in 2006 until 2007. And then we went back pretty much to the same location in 2009.
Oh, so you took a little bit of a gap.
Well, I mean, like we redeployed and everything, and then like you go back to home station, and you like the guys that were on stop loss and stuff, they got out.
Okay.
Like at that time when that deployment happened, it was kind of around the same time as a troop surge in Baghdad, right? So the numbers were really important. And so they were doing a lot of like what they called stop loss, which is like basically you're within say 6 months of getting out, but the unit's going to deploy. So we put a block on your ability to get out, essentially. And then you're stuck with the unit through the deployment.
Okay.
So we had a bunch of guys who were in that particular situation the first deployment that I went on. And, you know, when we got back, a bunch of those guys had either re-enlisted to go elsewhere because they wanted to stick around, or they just ended up getting out. So, you know, our unit was significantly depleted when we first came home.
Yeah.
Within like the first, say, 3 months, 6 months, whatever.
So 2006, you go. Did you mention? You mentioned where, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. We went to Mosul, Iraq.
Mosul, Iraq.
Yeah. This is like the second biggest city in Iraq.
We have some pictures and stuff. This is again, we're working with a new software, so let's test that out.
Yeah, Joe's gonna try and pull up some.
Okay, cool. So we can do pictures like that. So
yeah, you can see up north there is kind of
up north
where Mosul is located. So we were part of what was called Multinational Division North at the time, and basically we were, you know, in charge of looking for IEDs on the roads in that like particular part of Iraq.
So that was your main like job out there, was
our
IEDs.
The main focus on our mission essential task list was route clearance and protect the force and sustain the force.
Terrifying.
It was fun. I mean, yeah, it's definitely like an interesting job, right? Because you only have like one main focus, and that's like don't get blown up and don't let other people get blown up.
Yeah.
So in that regard, yeah, you don't have a lot of control in some real way, but in a lot of ways you have a ton of control, right? Because you're trained and the guys that you're with are doing their job, and you know, all of that kind of stuff. So
hopefully
Yeah, dude, we brought everybody home alive, right? We literally did not have one fatality while we were deployed. We definitely had some casualties. I think I would have to verify this, but our Purple Heart rate was very, very high. I want to say 90% of our guys got some kind of combat injury. Now, to include like TBIs and different, things like that, because that's a big part of it. Yeah, everybody in our company was awarded a combat action badge because everybody saw some direct combat, even like our mechanics, and that was the deal, man.
I mean, that kind of makes sense, though. The point of an IED is pretty much to have one go off, and then after ignition to catch you guys off guard and start a gunfight, right?
So, I mean, yeah, that became like, there was definitely a lot of what we would call like ambushes and stuff like that, where, an IED is more of like a distraction, right? Or they'll set up something that's sort of obvious to kind of like put you in a specific location where they kind of want you. And, then shit will get weird.
Yeah.
So,
we have a question from Roger. He asks, how large of an area is that? Mosul, I assume.
Mosul, what was the second largest city in Iraq? I think the population is like 500,000 or something like that. So, I mean, it's a good size city, but we were, when we talk about clearing routes, there's specific routes that we wanted to travel on, right? And that were considered like the main supply routes and stuff like that, and the alternate supply routes. So those were pretty much what we were focused on. We weren't like, trying to clear every individual, road. Yeah. Let's say. So there were specific named areas of interest and specific spots where we knew that we had to, focus on.
So, what is like the training for IED like clearing look like? Like what?
Well, so I mean, first of all, you have to define like what kind of IEDs are you kind of like looking for, right? What are the common TTPs? And it kind of changes all the time. Oh, I'm sorry. Tactics, techniques, and procedures.
Okay.
Like, what are the common like ways that the enemy is kind of targeting and doing their thing? So in the beginning, we would see a lot of what would be called command detonation. So command detonation means like I have to be eyes on. I have to be like watching the specific spot because it's going to blow up on a specific command, whether it's like a call from a long range cordless telephone or to a long range cordless telephone base. It's going to like complete a circuit and detonate that way, or whether it's going to be like some sort of like a garage door opener type device where it's crazy. Like, and then we would run into like different like passive infrared type things where it's like a motion detector type deal where because they didn't want us to be sitting in a specific area because we got smarter. Right? Yeah. And so as we get smarter, like they start to evolve what they're doing, and we would run into a lot of pressure plates and crush wires and different stuff like that. Like they would basically form like a circuit that's incomplete. And then when we drive over a specific spot on the road, like two areas of like copper wire are now connected. Right. And that's what completes the circuit that, initiates a detonation. So there was a lot of different stuff like that. Some military ordnance, some homemade explosives. So, you have to pay attention to different visual cues for all of that stuff is going to have a different, visual signature associated with it. So you got to know what you're looking for in terms of like freshly dug, earth that might indicate where a main charge is buried, or whether it's some debris in the road that could be, a hiding spot, or like even a marking location where it's like, hey, as soon as they cross such and such a threshold, right? Or a lot of times sometimes it would be as simple as like, hey, that trash bag that's sitting among all of these other trash bags is too clean.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. It was placed here today. And sometimes it's literally just like, I'm sitting in this spot and I feel like if I drive any farther, I'm going to be in danger. And I don't necessarily know why, but I trust that. I just stop.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It would happen on a semi-routine basis where like somebody would just all stop. The call would come up and we'd stop for a second, and everybody would kind of shift into like a security posture. So everybody's kind of like, everybody's like looking out of their vehicles, 5 and 25s, and then scanning and making sure that, we're identifying what we can visually see, kind of deal. And then it's like, all right, why are we stopped here? Like, what's going on? Because we don't want to be sitting here all day for no reason, but we want to make sure that, if somebody has, just a weird feeling, that sometimes we have to just honor that.
And would you guys be really lenient on that? Like, if you have a feeling, like if you feel something, say it, because I'd rather stop everything for a feeling than.
I mean, it depends on it depends on who is leading a patrol, right? Because every patrol leader is going to be a little bit different, and every patrol is going to be a little bit different. It depends on what happened, like today, right? It depends on what time of year it is. Like during the month of Ramadan, right? Like everybody would be a little bit more alert because like there would just be more stuff happening, right? So you have to pay attention to like what's going on. Is it like time for a local election or something like that? Because those would also be potentially like busy times. You know what I mean? You just have to kind of know like what's going on. And so every day you would get a briefing on like these were the significant activities since like the last time that we went on a patrol, maybe 48 hours ago. Here's the last like 24 hours. And then like, here's who else is going to be out at the same time that we're out. And, just make sure that you're talking to them and know what else other people are seeing.
It's got to feel cool, I guess, in a way, to have all of those briefings. It's crazy that there's people like just keeping current events like up to date for you guys. Like, that's a cool division, I guess.
It's good to it's good to get briefed up on the intelligence of the day or whatever is going on. But yeah, sometimes it's a little bit unnerving too, because you hear like, oh, there was a Iraqi police station that got blown up yesterday, and like there was 6 KIA whatever.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, well, we know that the Iraqi police guys are not going to be like out in force doing their thing. And so take every day as it comes, I guess.
I saw you just got rid of that. It's cool. I can control this. Just to show, these are all Pat's pictures. Can you pull up the one of the IED that? Yeah. So that picture, like they're just made like a car battery, and
so it's like a long range cordless telephone is like the initiation system, and that car battery is the power source. And so that's going to be a command detonated IED. Look, I didn't see the main charge there. So the main charge might have been hooked up, or they might have already, disconnected it there. I don't.
And like, what is disconnecting?
Don't really have any context.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I guess I just showed that picture because it's just wild how almost anything can be used.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely smart, and people use what they have to use, right? So like they learn how to make something out of almost nothing. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah. People are ingenious, and like you can't take anything for granted, right? Even like bottles of our piss, man, they would take and like extract urea nitrate from urine and like use that to make explosives.
That's wild.
Like I said, they use the resources that are available to them. So
the truckers have been doing?
Maybe that's why they store up so much piss.
Hi, Brandon.
Oh, hi, yeah, I'm here too.
Yeah,
he came in late, but we don't have room for you. Sorry.
You opted out, buddy.
Yeah.
You kicked yourself out.
So
what else you got for pictures there, Ty?
I got a few pictures. Let's
talk about them if you want, or you can.
Let's show a picture of you as a baby.
Fat baby.
2006. Look at little Pat. You were
Kimball.
23, you said?
I was 23.
Yeah. Where was that taken?
That was right outside of our Connex housing units, our chews. So yeah, that was like right outside of my little house.
Is this how you do it? I just wanted to say, I find it humorous how like most veterans, I would say like 90% of veterans, they have the opposite. Like when they were in service, that was like when they were the most jacked, like the most fit.
Right.
And like you look at you're like, oh, look at that fat piece of shit. Like when you were in service, like obviously still fit, like you were doing all the fitness stuff.
Yeah, we were still
dude.
We were going to the gym all the
You,
time.
like in terms of most prior servicemen, you've like Benjamin Buttons. Like you're fucking yoked now. Like
Look at that fucking clown. He doesn't know what's up.
Yeah, so 23, if I remember correctly, you had a kid, right? When two kids?
I had two
So
kids. I was married. Yeah, so that was kind of like, you know, I had what's the word? I had aspired to join the service before 2006, and I actually I went to the recruiter and I was not eligible for enlistment because I was on probation. I got in a little bit of trouble when I was younger. Yeah, I had like a petty larceny charge or something stupid. So I was not eligible to serve. Like at that time, I had to like do some specific steps. So I did. I went to college and I got like 12 college credits so that I could get my so that I would be like academically qualified. Because my initial plan was to enlist in the Marine Corps, and that was what I really thought I wanted to do until I was like way into the process, like literally ready to sign my contract, and everything on the contract was not what my recruiter had kind of discussed with me before he brought me to MEPS. So yeah, big shock that a recruiter would lie to you to get you to sign a contract, right? So
promising you Crayola and like
yeah, and they were gonna give me like some bullshit Dollar General. No, it was like they were gonna try to get me active duty. They were gonna get me like a waiver so that I could join the active Fleet Marine Force right out of boot camp. And my contract said that I was going to be assigned to a Marine Reserve unit, and then they had promised me like they were going to work on getting me a specific MOS that they like had a slot for allegedly. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty good. It was going to be like a small arms technician kind of deal. And then it turned out they wanted me to, it was going to be like 0311, which was infantry guy, or motor T, which was like a truck driver. And like I had zero interest in driving a truck.
sure.
And I had specifically told April that I would not enlist as an infantryman, which, you know, I ended up enlisting as a combat engineer. So same shit, different toilet, right? Essentially. But the problem with doing that is that I took a 6-year contract for $12,000 bonus. And if I had joined as an infantryman, I would have been guaranteed an airborne school slot in my contract. So option 3 was like in there, and then they were going to give me 3 years, $40,000 bonus, and airborne en route to my duty station. So if I would have gone that route, I probably would have been somewhere cooler ostensibly than Fort Riley, like Fort Bragg, or, you know, somewhere like that.
but you're happy you were in the Army rather than the Marines, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely would much rather be a soldier than a Marine for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I just had like the experience that I wouldn't have had the same experience, right? So like the people that I got to meet and the friends that I made and the stories that I have from that deployment and shit like that, like I wouldn't have any of it. It would all be completely different. So, you know, some of my best friends in the world are guys that I still keep in touch with from those times, you know, with 111.
So we have pictures of some incidences that happened. Can you go live with this one? So 4/11/06.
Yep. So that was from an that date is actually incorrect because we weren't even deployed then. I don't know whose camera. We didn't deploy until September of 2006. So that date stamp is actually not correct, but it doesn't really matter to the story, right? That vehicle was carrying multiple artillery shells that were supposed to be an IED. So that was what we called a suicide vehicle-borne IED, where they basically take a vehicle and they put a bunch of explosives in it, and then they drive it into a military vehicle and they detonate it with the hopes of like killing himself and then everybody in the vehicle as well. So that's kind of,
And that's
the
what that
deal.
that the
yeah.
next
So
part of
that, yeah, if you look at
um,
that, yeah. So that was the result like on our side, and you saw the result on the other vehicles end of things. And that was from a low, what we call a low order detonation. So the reason that that vehicle was still intact at all was because a bunch of the artillery shells that were actually in that vehicle ended up on the ground instead of like detonated. So whatever he did as far as like an initiation system or trying to daisy chain that shit together was not terribly effective. And so thankfully, you know, we were able to actually, that vehicle, believe it or not, self-recovered and drove the fuck out of there.
that's wild.
So yeah, and everybody in that vehicle was all right. They all like survived. They were like relatively unharmed.
Were you in that vehicle?
I was in the vehicle behind them. I was in the vehicle directly behind them. And basically what happened was we were at a traffic circle. And so we sent our lead vehicle through the traffic circle in like a leapfrog type of idea. And they were pulling security on the far side. And then we were pulling security on our sector. And then the Buffalo went to leapfrog across, and the vehicle came and hit them and detonated. And there was just like some dead space where nobody really had a clearly defined sector of fire there. And just like, you know, one of the downfalls of having a vehicle out there that didn't have a machine gun on it, right? Because that vehicle actually was more or less defenseless at that time. Eventually, the Buffaloes did have a Crow, like a joystick machine gun on them. So you didn't actually even have to have a guy like out. So, but that came later.
I know it's hard to see. Is that picture related?
No, so that's actually from.
Okay.
You can pull that up
Okay,
though, because
let's pull that up.
that's a cool story too. So, March the 15th, 2007, was like 6 months into the deployment. I was in this vehicle there that you see all damaged on the ground there. That was the vehicle that I was riding in. So, that blast hole is basically where we got hit. And then you can see the result on the vehicle. And then you can see everybody like trying to help with casualty evacuation. And you can see the vehicle in the front to like the 11 o'clock there. Yeah, where your cursor is. And they're pulling far side security. And what you can't see is that we actually have a bunch of other vehicles on station at that point. There were some Bradleys in some blocking positions there. Because what happened was we were driving down the route, and they had blown up an Iraqi police station the day before. And when I say blown up, I mean like leveled it, like an estimated like thousands of pounds of net weight of homemade explosives. So they blew up this whole police station. And then we're like driving through that same area, and everything is damaged, right? Ruined. And it had also rained. So everything looks kind of wet.
Yeah.
You can't really tell if somebody's been digging or if something got blown up or if it's just wet. You know what I mean? And there's not a lot of passable like roadway to kind of get around. So we kind of got just funneled into this nice little kill sack, and they hit us from underneath with like 200 or 300 pounds of homemade explosives, and basically lifted my vehicle up off of its wheels, snapped the front end clip off when we landed back on the ground. And everybody inside was pretty well concussed and like knocked out and stuff. Cause unfortunately, most of them hit their head.
Yeah.
Like they're in the vehicle and they basically got thrown out of their seats, and you know, there's a roof, right? Fortunately, I was a machine gunner. I did not hit my head on anything, but I almost got ejected from the vehicle. So I had to like catch myself kind of on the way out. But you know, a lot of the blast pressure is kind of escaping out by my ears, essentially,
Yeah.
right? So when I landed, first of all, I got lifted up out of my seat thusly, and then when I landed like this. So if you ever wonder why Uncle Pat's back hurts, it's because I got smashed one time on that metal seat when I was wearing about 60 pounds of bullshit, and my spine got folded in half. So that kind of put a damper on things, but I was still like awake. And obviously I was a little bit like disoriented for a second.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of looking around, and all of the windows were all orange because we had a bunch of chalk rounds from our 203s, and the pressure from the IED actually ruptured all the little blue canisters, and it made the orange dust go everywhere. So all the windows are completely like obscured, and my machine gun was gone. And then we start getting hit because it had gotten ripped off the cupola, and we start getting hit by like small arms fire. And I'm like, fuck, because I don't have any. I had nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have a machine gun, and all the personal weapons in the fucking truck. Like there's some pictures floating around somewhere. All the personal weapons that were in the truck were all fucked from like getting tossed around. We had an M4 with a flash hider that was crimped shut from getting smashed into some shit. We had a rear receiver where the receiver extension screws in. The rear receiver was cracked. My saw was deadline because the buttstock got snapped off, got thrown, in the V. So just like and my platoon sergeant, he starts like waking up, and he's like, "Kimball, return fire." That's like literally he just regained consciousness, and like the first thing that he said was, "Why isn't my machine gunner killing something right now? Like, what is wrong with this guy?" And I was like, "Sergeant P, I ain't got nothing." like we had no radio. We were like just sitting, and so like the rest of our element, they pulled up their security posture around us, and they like start fighting back. Turns out we were in the middle of a complex ambush. And we were like sitting there, like getting shot at from multiple different positions with PKMs and with AKs, and they had RPGs out there. And so we got close air support on station, and they came pretty quick. And then another engineer unit happened to be out clearing another section of road, and they got there pretty quick. And then we were able to like get local security established, and then we got everybody out. And then when we were driving back, my friend Marshall, he was like, there was a vehicle that was paralleling us on a different street, and they were like shooting at our Kazovac vehicle. And so we've got like myself and my platoon sergeant are in there, and so we're like trying to get back to the combat service hospital. And Marshall was like lighting up this van, and eventually like he shot the driver, and the van like wrecked or whatever. Wow. But yeah, so it was a pretty good fight. And I was actually shortly after that, I was in the operations section for a little while, and I became like the unit armor, and I wasn't supposed to go out on patrol anymore, but they let me go sometimes.
Yeah.
So
that kind of leads into Michael's question. After something like that, do you get pulled off duty for a while and to recover, or do you just have to soldier on?
No, it was like my first of all, like it could have gone either. It depends, right? It could have gone either way. It depends on like the individual, it depends on the unit, and it depends on like the mission requirements, right? But there was a recommendation that was made by somebody in the medical section that like, hey, this guy might need to go back to Germany or whatever, and like, not be forward deployed anymore. And my unit was like, they wanted to talk to me about it, kind of deal, or like, because ultimately it was a command decision.
Yeah.
So then my commander was like, hey, how are you feel? Like, what's going on with you? And I was like, well, we all came here together, and like we're supposed to leave together. Like, so I want to stay. And he was like, well, good, so I want you to stay.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, cool. So
it was your choice. Like they took.
Well, kind of. I mean, ultimately, like if I would have said like I want to be a bitch, then my commander probably would have listened to me, because he didn't want bitches around at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't want to be there, then it might have been different. But I wanted to be there with
Yeah.
with the boys. So.
Was that the first time first and only, or?
No, it wasn't the first time. It wasn't the only time. It was definitely the most like serious time. But there were, I think everybody in my unit got blown up like multiple times, and some of them were like more significant, I would say, than that. As far as like individual blasts go,
Mhm.
we had a guy that was in a vehicle called the Husky. That's like basically a one-person vehicle, and it's basically using like ground penetrating radar type of technology to look for mines like that are buried and different stuff like that. And he got rocked from underneath as well, and that was a big one.
Yeah.
And some people definitely suffered like lasting effects from
Of course.
for sure.
And I wanted to get into some lasting effects. I mean, how do you come back to civ life after like driving, like being blown up? Like, how do you trust the road? How do you?
It's it's weird at first, but eventually like you just realize like that's not my life. That's not part of life now. You know what I mean? Like that was part of life then. But it takes a little bit of time, especially when other people are driving. I have more trouble when other people are driving because I feel like I have less control.
Yeah.
So, but when I drive vehicles, sometimes I do get just a little bit more like anxiety.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Just because I know, like, I know how much bad shit can happen.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I'm just trying to think.
No, it's all good, man.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so that deployment was like 15 months, right? From like September 2006 till December 2007. Then, yeah, it was supposed to be a 12. The standard was 12 then, but most units were getting extended for like 3 months at a time. So I ended up, it was messed up for me specifically because I went on leave in December of 2006. So we deployed in September 2006. And I ended up having to go on leave almost right away because I was so low on the seniority list that everybody else kind of got to pick when they wanted to go on leave in my platoon before I did. So by the time I was able to like figure out when I wanted to potentially go on leave, the only thing that was left was like, well, I could go home for Christmas. And so like, okay, that's cool. I'll go, but like, we've been deployed for 90 days. We just got, I'm not even like bored of being deployed yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was cool because I got to surprise April and do it that way. She didn't know I was coming home kind of deal. So her mom like picked me up and like we drove to meet her like at Tops, or she was just like grocery shopping or whatever. And so like we met up with her and she was like all surprised. And then I got to go home with her from there. And so we hung out for a couple of weeks. And then when I went home, I don't remember when we found out we got extended, but I think it was like June. I think like, so we were like, it was 6 months later. And I'm thinking like, okay, I got deployed. I went on leave. I've been away for, again, 6 months. And now I got another 3 months to go. And then I'll get to go back home again. And no, come to find out we got extended for 90 days. So it ended up being like from December of 06 until December of 07 that I didn't get to like go home to the fam.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a long 12 months. That was a long 12 months.
Was it difficult, like leaving your family?
Like again?
Yeah, I guess like just in general. Can you go into that?
Well, okay, so let's talk about the amount of family separation. I see from the chat April's here too, so she can kind of back me up on this. So when I enlisted, I went in February of 2006. I went to the unit in June of 2006. Oh, I'm sorry. I went on leave in June of 2006 after basic, and then I went to the unit in July of 2006. By September of 2006, we were deployed. So like I was away for 16 weeks. I went home for 3 weeks, 2 weeks of leave, and then 1 week of hometown recruiter assistance. And then when I went to Fort Riley, to home station, I was there for 2 months away from the fam. And then I got deployed for another 3 months away from the fam. So 16 weeks, home for 3, gone for 5, home for 2, gone for 5 months, home for 2 weeks, gone for 12 months, and then back home. So for the first like 18 months I was in the Army, or no, from September 2006 until December of 2007, I spent a grand total of 6 weeks like with my family.
Yeah.
So that first almost 2 years was tough. But it ended up being worth it, like long term.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, it was, I mean, very difficult time for them because April was a single mom essentially for a long time.
Yeah.
And difficult for Sean because he was like little, and he's like, some of the first like sentences that he learned were like, my dad's in Iraq.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and as Michael says, that's a dedicated woman. Shout out to April for
for
sticking
sure.
through all of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was a hard one, man, but we made it. Sorry, these stools kind of suck.
Yeah, they do suck. Very creaky.
Yeah, they're creaky and they're a little bit uneven, so I'm trying to get comfortable for you guys.
So your first deployment, that like first year, what was like the big takeaway you got from that? Like what life lessons, what life experiences did you, like reflecting now, what did you gather from all of that?
Just how much you have to be able to trust the guys that you're working with, just how much like emphasis you have to put on what you do in training, and like how everything is a rehearsal for something, right? One of the things that made us really good at like the situation that I was in, where we had to do like a casualty evacuation and stuff like that. One of the things that helped us there was we had rehearsed that over and over and over again, right? So we knew what we were supposed to do. Everybody had a specific job that they were supposed to do, and everybody knew the job, and everybody was able to do it, right? And so that was really big, just in terms of like having those rehearsals kind of nailed, because you don't want to learn on the fly in that situation, right? So that was really good. And then, yeah, the trust factor and just like how much effort and emphasis you put on like the minutia of like the rehearsals and having your gear set up, like, so it works, so that where that next reload is coming from, and all of that different shit, like just the different things that I try to impart to you guys when we're on the range, right? Like when we're out there shooting, and it's like, hey, freaking get that rifle up. It's important. Like,
yeah,
because I had shit like that happen too, where like you have a gun go down like at an inopportune time, and then it's like, get that gun up, like make it work. So there was a time we were on patrol and we're heading like north. I think we were actually going back home kind of deal. And we were driving past this little like alleyway, and I'm a machine gunner, so I'm just kind of like looking around, what's going on over here, what's going on over there. And I see a guy with an RPG, and he kind of, I was like, oh shit. So stop, and then like we backed up the vehicle, and like I kind of see the guy like peeking his head kind of deal. So I was like, oh shit. Shot a couple rounds at him, and then I start getting shot at from over here.
Sorry, are you shooting with like
shooting like a 240?
Okay.
Shooting like a 2. So I shot like a 6 or 8 round burst from the 240 at the guy with the RPG because I saw him poke his head.
Yeah.
So I shot a couple rounds at him, and then I start getting shot at, and I couldn't tell exactly where it was coming from at first. So I started traversing my gun turret, and my driver called out where he saw it coming from. And I was like, okay. So I turned and I saw like muzzle flash, and you can hear, you hear some bees going by. So I'm like, okay, there he is. And I went to shoot, and I pressed the trigger, and my gun was down. And I was like, fuck. Yeah. Like, fuck. And so like, I'm like down here, like trying to like pull, observe, push. Yeah. Like I'm trying to get my gun up and trying not to get fucking shot. Right?
Of course.
So I get my gun, I get my feed belt fixed, and I get my feed pawl cleared out, and I charge my gun, and he shot at me again, and I fucking put, some rounds into that fucking window area, and he stopped shooting. So it was like, but meanwhile, I got my fucking squad leader down there yelling at me, fucking get the gun up, and like.
Is that the YouTube video that you have?
No. That one where they're like, "Who's shooting?" and I was like,
Yeah.
"Me." No.
Okay.
I was just shooting an M16 in that one.
I'm going to. There's a couple YouTube videos that you have, or there's videos that out.
Well, they're on
link
YouTube
to.
Already, so yeah. If you,
I'm gonna find them and link them
That's
in
fine.
the Spotify.
You put it in there. It's already posted on YouTube. Some of these guys might have already seen. I know I've watched them. So.
They're fun videos, especially knowing it's you.
I didn't put them out there. You can tell from the voice in the one when they're like, "Who's shooting?" and I was like, "It's me."
There's another picture. This guy. Can we bring this up?
Oh yeah, so that was like one of the first things that we noticed when we were in Mosul, just kind of rolling around, is like how many of those windows have bullet holes around them. Just like how many.
Wild.
Yeah, man. The unit that was there before us, they were involved in a lot of gunfights as well, and they definitely like let us know where some of the hot spots were, where they were taking a lot of contact. Unfortunately, on their way out, they ended up losing a guy, so that kind of sucked for everybody concerned. It sucked for them, obviously. Sucked for his family, because he was actually supposed to already have redeployed back home at that time. So that was another like difficult lesson, is like literally the first time that I went outside the gate, we got shot at with like precision small arms fire, and they hit a window, bulletproof glass, no penetration, whatever. But it left a significant like amount of damage in the window.
Yeah.
And like, that was the first time out of the gate that I'd never been in a vehicle that got struck by a bullet before.
And it kind of became real, right?
Right.
Like,
so I was like, on the first patrol, you can get shot at. And then like, within a week, let's say, somebody was killed in action that should have already gone home. Right. So first patrol or last patrol, it doesn't fucking matter, right? Like it's real the whole time. It's all like every time you roll out, like it could be the last time you roll out.
How do you cope with that? Do you kind of just not think about it? Do you?
No, you think about it.
Memento
You think
mori,
about it
you
a
just
lot.
expect it?
No, you have to. One of the rituals. This is like how we kind of had to embrace it for ourselves. So I had a roommate. We called him Moses. I won't out him any more than that. We called him Moses. And Moses and I used to listen to, the Metallica song One?
Yeah.
Landmine has taken my arms, taken my legs, taken my, right? We used to listen to that before we would go out on patrol. Right. So we're going out looking for IEDs, like literal landmines sometimes, Italian like TT6 mines and French anti-tank mines and different shit like that. And we're like listening to a song about like getting maimed by a landmine.
Yeah.
Right. Like in preparation to like go out and do work. Right. Because that's the job, man. Like somebody might die.
Yeah.
Right. Like we all signed up for the same job. Right. Like, what it is. Somebody might die. So it's all right.
I mean, I guess it's just, as a civilian who's never been in a situation like that, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around, like, my job is going, like, the chances of my job killing me are pretty high. I'm just like, as a civilian, it's hard to wrap my mind around that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's a responsibility. Like, when I enlisted, right? Like, first of all, I didn't have like that many better career paths that were like readily apparent to me at the time. I didn't have a high school education, essentially. Like, I had a GED and a couple of college credits. I had been working like literally 3 jobs before I joined the Army. I was doing like a warehouse thing in basically the same hours that I work now for UPS, like 3 a.m, staging loads for guys to go out and do deliveries. And then I would go and do like a construction gig during the day, when like, 9 to 5 type deal. And then 4 days a week, And on Saturdays, I would have to go and do telemarketing for like 3 hours after, from like 6 to 9 at night. So, I was working literally like, 16, 18 hours a day, 3 or 4 days a week, just trying to like make enough money, and still didn't have insurance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was in a pretty messed up situation when I had a wife and 2 kids, and I didn't really have a good plan on how I was going to like support them like long term. So I figured, I might as well do this for a little bit and like learn some stuff, and like, maybe I'd do it forever kind of deal. And I would have done it for, at least my 20 years. I would still be doing it right now, if I hadn't have had some other circumstances come up. But, a bunch of my friends are still doing it now or have retired and whatever. And, so I get to still be like close to it a little bit.
Excuse me. Michael again asks, he's curious how someone gets picked as a machine gunner. Do you ask for it, or are you just picked?
I don't remember really how that kind of went. I think it might have been just like through like the process of, I hadn't been trained on being a driver. I think it was just like a process of elimination kind of deal. Plus I shot well enough on the machine guns on the range to like qualify as a machine. Not everybody, was proficient enough to like actually shoot the qualification table and pass. The machine gun qualification table isn't super hard, but I mean, there's a time standard associated with it, and some of the targets can be harder to see if you don't, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just a good machine gunner, man. I liked it. I wanted to shoot stuff.
Sounds fun.
Just wanted to shoot stuff.
What other stories do you have that like stick out a lot?
I mean, honestly, like some of the best stories that I can remember are stories about times when it was just like after the first deployment, training my guys to go and, do their job and trying to get them, spun up. I remember when all the new soldiers came in after everybody got stop loss and stuff, a bunch of us had just gotten promoted to sergeant at the same time. So, I'd been in the Army like 2.5 years at this time, and thought I knew a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Thought I was a pretty squared away guy. So all these new soldiers come in, and me and my buddies are all wearing our shiny new sergeant stripes, and we would just like, find different ways to like pick on each other's soldiers. So I'd see one of my buddies' guys that was all fucked up somehow, like his uniform was messed up, or he didn't shave, or, he wasn't, whatever, wasn't doing what he's supposed to do. I'd be like, hey, get over here, you. Who's your squad leader, private? And he'd be like, oh, sergeant, whatever. And I'd be like, oh, yeah? Well, you tell Sergeant whatever that fucking Sergeant Kimball says you're fucked up. Just,
Awesome.
Just stuff like that, man. Just like good time. I remember one of the new soldiers were like myself and my buddy Sergeant Kleiber, who you met. We were sitting in operations, and he's like processing this new soldier into the unit, right? And I had just picked up corporal. This was before I was even a sergeant, so I was eligible for promotion, but I hadn't gotten promoted to sergeant yet. So I got my corporal stripes on, and we got this brand new soldier sitting in the operations office, and he's literally sitting there like this, like he's on vacation. And like the first sergeant walks in, and he's cussing about something or this, and he's like, I can't believe that S1 did this or that fucking bullshit. And this private looks over at the first sergeant and just goes, I can't believe it's not butter. And the first sergeant looks at this fucking private that's sitting there like this in his operations center, and he looks at fucking Specialist Kleiber, who's processing this dude in, and he's just sitting there like, oh my God. He's just like got his head down like, oh my God. And he looks at Corporal Kimball, who's sitting there like just kind of waiting.
That's him.
And yeah, that was me. So he looks over at Corporal Kimball, and he's like, hey, Corporal Kimball, why don't you take those new stripes of yours out for a test drive? I took this guy outside and I smoked the balls off of this soldier for like 20 minutes. And he comes back in and he is just sweating. And he sat in that chair real straight. He didn't say another word.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time. I still talk to that guy. That's the thing, man, is like I took care of them too, right? Like
Yeah.
I would fuck with them and I would like do stuff to like let them know like we're professional soldiers and like this is a job and you know all that kind of stuff and like you know keep them focused on the mission, right? But at the end of the day, like I would always tell them like, hey man, this is why, right? Like it wasn't about just like me wanting to be an asshole, although that was part of it. It's not all of it.
It's fun to embellish in that a little bit.
Yeah, no, it was a good time, man.
Gemma asks, what was your rank when you left?
I was an E5 sergeant. They tried to dangle a promotion in front of me to extend my contract, but I couldn't extend my contract at the time. So I left as an E5. So, but I was a platoon sergeant at the time, so I was an E5 serving in a position that would normally be an E7 position.
I'm looking through pictures.
That's fine.
So we've got a bunch of guns here.
Pull them up. Let me see. I like guns. In case you guys didn't know. So we have a 240 Bravo up on the top there. That is a 7.62 by 51 NATO general purpose machine gun. It is belt fed and air cooled, and it shoots a cyclic rate of like between 600 and 800 rounds per minute. And then below that, you have a saw. That is a 5.56 by 45 NATO squad automatic weapon. It is a lightweight belt or magazine fed weapon. And it fires from the open bolt position, just like the M240. And it has a cyclic rate of 800 to 1,000 rounds per minute. Then you have an M16A4. And then below that, you have a Mossberg 500. That is just a regular off-the-shelf 18.5-inch cylinder bore variant. We had to go local purchase them from Walmart.
Did you just like bring these home? Is that your backpack? Like, where's that photo taken?
It's a pic. You can see the camo net. Yeah, it is. You can see the camo net over top.
I know that.
Don't tell them where I keep my stash.
So is that like basic like patrol loadout? Like when you're
No, that we were just cleaning. We were just cleaning all of our shit. Yeah. So those guns were actually like my guns. The 240 would be on top of the vehicle, and then the M16. I would usually just borrow the M16 from like who's ever driving or whatever, and keep it up there for like my because I was actually a saw gunner as well. So my saw, I couldn't use that for escalation of force. We can talk about escalation of force in a second, but I couldn't use a saw for escalation of force, so I had to use an M16. So the saw would usually be down in the vehicle. And then the shotgun, that was probably just what I was carrying around the fob at the time because I was a unit armor and I didn't want to fucking carry some heavy shit. So I just like to carry a shotgun sometimes or like a pistol or whatever.
So for the record, you used a shotgun.
I used a shotgun to look like I had a gun. When I was walking around, I wanted to look like I had a gun. Yeah, I would carry a shotgun.
Can we go into escalation of force?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things about being a machine gunner is like not everything that you want to shoot is necessarily something that you get to shoot, right? So like sometimes you feel like you should be, able to use lethal force, but legally you can't, right? So you have to go through a specific progression of steps in order to be justified. So our progression, the way that we were supposed to do it was shout, signal, show, shoot, shoot, shoot. So shout like, hey, stop. Signal being like, hey, I have a stop sign here and I'm holding it and waving it at you. Another signal would be like a little pen flare. We used to shoot like pen flares, huh?
Dazzlers at all?
It's not so think about like a tracer round, but like it's just the tracer. It's not like an actual bullet, right? Okay. So you're just shooting like basically a white or like a red phosphorus little projectile flare. Essentially, it's just a flare at a car, right? So if I want you to stop and I shoot this red flare and it bounces off your window, you think I just tried to kill you.
Yeah.
But in reality, I did not, right? I wasn't using lethal force. So that would be like part of our signal procedure. The idea is I want you to stop before you're within 100 meters of our patrol, right? Especially if we're stopped, like I need you to stop. Because that's the other thing is we have to have a secure cordon like around where we're working at, in case there's an IED. Because every once in a while, like we had a couple of incidents where we had an IED that was detonated and we had like established our cordon and everything was cool. And somebody ended up getting hit with like secondary frag or something like that. And now we have to like provide some sort of medical intervention. And it's just a huge pain in the ass. So we didn't like to get into those situations. But we did have good medics. And our medics were like always willing to help like local nationals and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a great experience overall, man. I really got a lot out of it. I enjoyed it. It was a shitty place to be, but I was with some really cool guys.
Yeah, it sounds it. To keep going about escalation of force.
Yeah.
Shoot. Like,
oh yeah, so shout, signal, show, and then shoot to the hill, right? So you want to shoot to a berm. You want to shoot to some kind of a soft target that's going to absorb a bullet without deflecting it, because you have to maintain accountability, right?
Yeah.
Even though we're in a combat zone, we can't be just ricocheting bullets all over the place. And then I'm going to try to shoot to disable your vehicle. And if I'm shooting with 5.56, even like M855, it's probably going to take a couple of rounds, even on like a smaller vehicle. So in general, if we're shooting to the grill, then we're going to move pretty quickly into shooting to kill.
Yeah.
So shout, signal, show, shoot to the hill, shoot to the grill, shoot to kill.
How discouraging is it that you have to follow all of these steps when they don't care?
Well, okay, so there's three facets to that, I think. The first facet is we are professionals, right? And as professionals, like we take great pains to minimize whatever damage we could do to the relationship that we're trying to build with coalition forces or with the Iraqi people in general, right? So there's that side of it. There's also the side of it where we're trying to protect the force and the people that we're deployed with, and right, our guys. So there's also like the loyalty that you have to like protecting the people that you're responsible for, especially if you have like the most casualty producing weapon, right? Because as the guy with the most casualty producing weapon, like that's our fire superiority, right? So that's a pretty significant job. But then also there's the element of like self-preservation too, right? Like I want to stay alive, so I want to be empowered to do the things that I think are going to keep me fighting, so that the machine gun is working, so that the force is protected, right? So there's all of that different stuff, and ultimately, like I think it's a good. It was helpful. Like it could have been really detrimental, right? And if you let it get too much into your head about like I have to follow all these specific rules, but really there's only a specific criteria, that there's only a specific threshold that has to be met, and that is like I have to have either hostile actions or I have to have hostile intent, and I have to be able to articulate that, right? So if I don't necessarily need to go through all of those different steps if I have an overt hostile act, or I can articulate hostile intent.
Like if a round bounces off, like, okay, I don't have to wave, I don't have to stop, I can just go straight to shoot, right? If you know who did it, if you...
Right. Yeah. Like if somebody shoots it at us, right, I'm not going through all of these different steps of like, hey, stop. Right. Like, hey, stop is like everybody speaks a little 240 Bravo, right? Like that is like a universal, it's like a universal language, right? I don't have to say stop. I'll just help you.
So I guess what would be one of the hardest moments you had to go through in the service?
If
you're comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, no, man, of course. I think the first couple of guys that we lost to suicide when we came home were really hard. The first two guys, man, because they were both members of my same platoon. They were both dudes that I had done a lot of combat patrols with. They were guys that I had spent a lot of time getting to know.
Brothers. Right?
Yeah, man, for sure. And like I really like missed having those guys as part of like my day-to-day routine, right? So that was really challenging when that happened, because that seemed to happen pretty quick. I don't remember the exact date. I mean, I remember the exact date of one, and I only remember the exact date for him because it happened to be the anniversary of the date when that IED event we were talking about earlier happened. So it was the 15th of March 2008. So that was like, it was already a date that like I remembered and I knew. And so then that date became like even more difficult for a while, just because like I had, you know, a personal attachment to it where it was like, hey, this is like my alive day, right? And that was like, for a while I was kind of a weirdo about it, I guess.
Yeah.
But then you know, once it was like his angel birthday too, then it was kind of like, well, fuck, now it's like, now it's even shittier, right? Or it was then. But then I had to like move past that, and I had to be like, well, no, actually it's like the opposite, right? Because like it's still my alive day, and it's a day when like it's important to remember my friend too, right?
Yeah.
But not to do it in like a way that he would think I was a bitch, right? Because like he came from like he was like a straight up gangster before he joined the army. And so he was more used to some of that shit, I think, than we were, in terms of like just getting shot at and like being like knowing how he was going to kind of react in that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that situation. And he did, man. He was always ready to fucking get busy. He was always like down. And so like I always wanted to, like, once he was gone, I always wanted to be that guy. I always wanted to be down, you know what I mean? Like, fuck it, let's get it on, let's do it.
Yeah.
So like that was a big takeaway from him, was like, just, you know the job, know what you signed up for, and be ready to do it to like the fullest extent.
Yeah.
So what else you got?
I'm running out.
All right.
Yeah, we got some more pictures. We actually have a couple more pictures, I think.
All right.
Can we just show some of these?
Nothing that's going to initiate any investigations.
We made sure to vet those out.
Yeah, I'm only teasing. Yeah, so I don't know who that is or where that is, but that's one of our vehicles. You can see the machine gunner up there. He's got his mask on. Pretty dusty and shit out there sometimes, so every once in a while you want to put some protection on the old face.
And is this the vehicle you would typically ride in personally?
Yeah. So that is an RG-31. Yeah, that was one of the vehicles, like what I was riding in when we got hit. Actually, every time I was ever involved in an IED detonation, I think I was riding in one of those.
Probably don't love those vehicles.
The part I didn't like about them was the lack of doors. If you look on the side, the door is actually in the back.
Oh.
So they're kind of like death traps.
Yeah, like getting out if it ignites or
yeah,
whatever.
like it just seems like it kind of counterintuitive. Now the machine gunner, obviously, he's good. He's got his own little hatch. There's a couple little doors in the back, but these guys really don't have a lot of options up there in the passenger, in the driver compartment area. So that iteration of those vehicles was not.
How's that take smaller?
Doesn't. So so here's a really fucking cool story. So one time we were out sitting on an IED, and we ended up getting an RPG shot into the side of my vehicle, right? But if you go back to the picture there, you can see there's some little like hatches back here. So back above the rear wheel, Josiah, if you look, you can see there's like a little door, like a little compartment there. And there's one right under the driver's window too. So right in that one under the driver's window, we had a bunch of water bottles under there inside of that compartment. So when they shot the RPG, for those of you that don't know, an RPG is basically a shape charge that's inside of a little rocket propelled device with a piezoelectric igniter on the end of it, right? So what happens is the RPG flies into the designated target and the little igniter detonates, and then it initiates the shape charge inside, and the shape charge actually forms like a copper like plasma jet, and it shoots into like through armor, right? That's how it penetrates, is using that copper shape charge to cut through. So the water that was in the compartment there, it actually cooled the shape charge down to the point where we actually recovered the little copper fucking deal, and we recovered the tail fin because it cooled down, to the point where it was totally ineffective. Now, if that had not been the case, if it had impacted the driver's door, probably I wouldn't be sitting here next to you, and definitely my driver wouldn't have been alive for sure.
Like one case of water, like roughly that. That's crazy.
Yep. Well, they were liter bottles, and they were laying long ways, so it was actually quite a lot. It was quite a lot of water that it had to like kind of penetrate. But it worked. Just make the tanks out of water bottles, and everybody's gonna be fine.
Sounds terrible.
For legal reasons.
Matt asks a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. What was the best thing you ate, or your favorite thing to eat while deployed?
Oh, dude, we used to eat so much ice cream. We would eat so much because sherbet, that we would always say it was fat free. It wasn't fat free at all. It was it was shit. It was bad. But they had so much ice cream for us. They had like the Magnum bars. You guys ever had like?
Yeah.
Dude, Magnum bars are expensive, right? But like they had them. They had everyone. They had the dark chocolate ones with the almonds. They had milk chocolate ones with no almonds. They had white chocolate ones. They had white chocolate ones with little Oreo fucking pieces.
That's awesome.
You got a bunch of chubby kids.
I know, right? No, dude, we had so much. The access to ice cream was unparalleled when I was deployed. So that was one cool thing for me because I like that stuff. But also, dude, they had guys that would make sandwiches. And there's a story associated with me and sandwiches. Maybe I'll save it for another day.
I mean, you brought it up. I kind of want to hear it.
So basically the story goes like we were getting ready to go out on patrol, and we were like making our plans for like what was going to happen after the patrol. And so we're like, we're going to go out here. We're going to do this little patrol, and then we're going to come back and we're going to hit the gym, or we're going to go to lunch, and then we're going to hit the gym. And I was like, that sounds like a plan. And then I was like, nah, you know what, man? I have a feeling we're going to get busy today. And I was like, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get some, and then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to get a sandwich. And we went out on patrol, and sure enough, we made contact, and I got some, and then I got to eat a sandwich.
It's awesome.
It was a good sandwich, man. I had a panini. Yeah, they grill them. They put it
Were
on.
these people on base, or were they?
Yeah, they were little Filipino guys.
Were you ever allowed to just like stop at food places? I mean, I know it's a job, but
Dude, so there was a you guys know what naan bread is, right?
yeah.
Flatbread. Usually it's really well, like over there, they season it really nice and it's delicious, right? So yeah, we would stop and get naan all the time at this one local bakery type place, and eventually they blew the bakery up.
That sucks.
Yeah. So
That really sucks.
yeah, no, but we would have like local food. We got some falafel from time to time. There was actually a cool little place on the base where you could actually go and get you could check out Middle Eastern food and stuff like that. So you didn't have to like just do it when you're out in sector kind of deal. So yeah, we got to do like falafel, and we got to have like naan bread, and we got to eat like watermelon and different shit. It's cool, man.
Michael asks, can we get Milsurp Magnums? I didn't pay taxes in 2006 and 2008, but my mom did, and she says you're welcome for the Magnums.
Thank you. I appreciate it for sure.
I wasn't old enough.
Now, just so you guys know, from that one picture, that was like early on in the deployment. I did end up getting like kind of like swole during the deployment, so that was.
It wasn't Fat Pat.
I wasn't always a fat kid, but yeah, there was definitely a time when we were getting a lot of ice cream.
There's actually a picture I like of you. This one.
Yeah, so that's me going out on mission as a machine gunner.
Yeah, like
you can see there's my machine gunner's hatch right over my head, and you can see that we have high explosive. Those are not marking rounds for the 40 Mike there. Those are high explosive grenades. You can see my buddy sitting next to me with this saw, and we're getting ready to go out and do some work.
So you told the story with the chalk rounds, how it was all orange inside. Would those have detonated too, or are those pretty sticky?
No. Those actually rely on velocity and rotation.
Okay.
To actually the way the fuse in there is kind of set up, they actually have to rotate a specific number of times. So I couldn't even shoot it from me to that door and probably get it to actually detonate.
Okay.
It needs a certain amount of travel through the air to get the safe standoff distance before it's going to be effective.
That's why in Call of Duty, when you're too close, like you kill the guy, but it doesn't blow up.
New
Right.
tubing.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happens, right? Like you just fucking, just collapses ribs,
Hurts a
then
lot.
muzzle stuff him in the face, or whatever.
Any last stories you want to share?
No, I think I told you guys too many stories.
I don't think so. I
No.
think we could do another
I don't think
hour of
I don't
stories.
think anybody cares about these stories that much. But no, I appreciate you guys' interest in what I used to do, and it was a really neat job. A lot of people will say like thank you for your service and stuff like that, and I definitely appreciate. I've seen a couple of those here, and thank you guys for paying taxes. But also it was the best job that I've ever had, and it definitely taught me a lot and put me in a better position to take care of my family. So I really appreciate the opportunity to wear the uniform, and it was definitely an honor and a privilege to do it. I hope I did it well.
Yeah, and I'm just happy I get to sit here and talk with you about it, and I'm sure our listeners really loved it. You're getting a lot of love. You have been getting love throughout the entire stream, and
yeah, I appreciate it, man. I didn't, it's kind of uncomfortable to be the topic of conversation. I don't mind topping, or I don't mind. Whoa. I don't mind talking. I don't mind being in the conversation. I don't necessarily want to be the topic of the conversation. But I appreciate you guys listening and asking questions. And
I was going to say that the cool thing about this is like it's your stories and your experience, and your lessons learned are now immortalized, as well as you using shotguns and Utah.
yeah, now everybody knows about shotguns and various other shit. So good job. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. Ty, great job.
Thank you.
Josiah, thanks for keeping us on
I
track.
appreciate you guys.
With the pictures and all of the good stuff. And yeah,
Check out, we got a new counter. If you guys didn't see on Facebook already, that's why we're so short and so small. It's
yeah,
gonna be fun.
we're on YouTube Live now too, so we're not doing any handling of firearms on the stream during the live. We're gonna try and play with some format stuff because I want to be able to keep the integrity of the show. I know why a lot of you guys watch is for the gun content, and that's really where my heart lies, I guess.
Oh yeah, same.
But like
YouTube makes it hard with.
they do make it hard with the live aspect of
can't
things. So
touch-
we'll try to figure out what we can do for you guys. Maybe we can
Of
do
course.
some other videos on the side or something. I don't know.
We'll always bring it to them.
Yeah,
it's
100%.
our job. We're closed the 4th. Just a couple of house things. We haven't made a post officially, so you guys are all the first to hear. But my grandmother says Happy 4th to everybody, and
Yeah, enjoy your Independence Day, guys.
we will see you guys next time.
Peace
Love
out.
you all. Bye.